is a run-pass option. McCarthy takes off to the right, to the 10. Stutter steps at the 5. Touchdown! He's J.J. McCarthy.
He is J.J. McCarthy, and that is Paul Allen of KFAN. Great to have his voice back on NFL Daily. I am Gregg Rosenthal. I am joined, as always, on Primetime Games by Nick Shook to talk about another big-time comeback in a primetime games. Not all comebacks are equal, but this one, the Vikings trailing 17-6, going into the fourth quarter, is an example, unlike that Bills-Ravens one the other night, that sometimes the restorative power of a great defense can lead you to a comeback. And the Vikings defense just kept stopping the Bears over and over and over again until finally J.J. McCarthy suddenly got religion on offense. Everything slowed down for him, and he scored 3 touchdowns in successive drives, usually off good field position. And the Minnesota Vikings go into Chicago and steal one 27-24. Nick, to me, this was more improbable than the Bills comeback because the Bills have Josh Allen at quarterback, and J.J. McCarthy for 3/4 of this game looked completely lost, but that's why we watch this. That's why we love this.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy found God, and what Kevin O'Connell did was found simplification of the offense. I mean, the operation of the Vikings offense for the first 3 quarters was too complex. They were having a hard time getting snaps off before the expiration of the play clock, and then suddenly in the fourth quarter, it seems just pretty elementary. Roll out, boots to the right, passes to the flat. Jordan Mason gets going on the ground. They start to build momentum. You get a nice, convenient pass interference call that extends the drive, and you immediately capitalize. McCarthy shows off the arm by finding Justin Jefferson in a pretty tight window along the goal line for their first score. That gives them hope, much like we talked about last night. You need one play to give you hope. Then they get that stop. They get the ball right back. They go down the field again. McCarthy puts a dot on Aaron Jones, and suddenly they're in the lead, and we're all shocked. And it all started with, I think, the defense, like you said, and the simplification of the offense, taking away the complexities of it and just letting J.J. McCarthy do what he does best, which is play football and make plays at quarterback.
Yes. Welcome to the YouTube audience who is watching us live. We are going to do this live every single Monday night. Appreciate you all, being here. And I thought it was going to be like a blah sort of show. And we're going to have some of these primetime games where you got to spice it up. You're going to have to find fun angles to it. But this one, so much happened. And I really do go back to the defense to start, Nick, because it's going to get lost in this game because the Bears ended up with 24 points. It's hard to forget about the first impression. People like you who are writing about this game on NFL.com, you have one story written and then it is rewritten, and you have this idea that the Bears offense played well and Caleb Williams makes these great passes early in the game. But until that final drive by the Bears, where they did score a touchdown, they needed to score it quick, they did a good job to make it closer. They had only had 10 points on offense in 10 drives. That would be the worst offense in decades on a points per drive basis. They end up with a touchdown at the end, so that's 17 points because I'm not counting the pick 6. That doesn't count towards your offense. In 11 drives, that is actually worse per drive than the 2024 Bears that inspired a hit piece on Caleb Williams' professionalism on golong.com over the weekend. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit because I thought that was an interesting backdrop to this game. And what I would say about Brian Flores and this Vikings defense is even though they gave up that first drive and another field goal early, I thought they got much more aggressive, and ultimately Caleb Williams' only good plays were ones that he was creating on his own. And for the most part, when he was just dropping back to pass or when they were trying a traditional run game, the Vikings defense had it stopped. And sometimes you do that enough over and over and over. Even if your offense is playing terribly, eventually you could give them a chance to make a comeback. And that's what J.J. McCarthy did tonight.
Yeah, they definitely did. And I think if you examine this game, you go watch this in condensed replay tomorrow and it's just play by play, you're going to think, something changed here, and the first thing you'll notice is the play in the trenches, because early in this game, Caleb is making plays, but he's also got a little bit more time to throw. Yes, he has some magic. He has that throw to Rome Odunze down the sideline that made my heart flutter in real time. That ends up on that drive. A touchdown is scored, and they're up 7-0. But From there, it gradually shifted. And this is the beauty of, I think, of football, the in-game adjustments. Because at one point, it was either in the second or the third quarter, the Vikings started to win that trench battle convincingly. And at the same time, the Bears started to lose their trench battle on the defensive side of the ball. And that's when everything really started to shift. It was the precursor to then what we saw, the explosion of points in the fourth quarter. And that really told the entire story, because for 3 quarters, JJ McCarthy was constantly being harassed. The speed was too much for him. Everything was too much for him. And then suddenly he just finds it. No, he finds it because they start to win up front, and they won up front on both sides of the ball in that fourth quarter. And the signs were there a couple quarters earlier. And that's really what shut down the Bears offense. You're absolutely right. For as great as that opening drive was, they needed a pick six just to put another touchdown on the board. And it wasn't until that final score in the final minute and a half that they were able to get back in the end zone offensively. Like, this is, I hate to say it, because there's a lot of things to like from the Bears. Showing under Ben Johnson, creativity and everything else. But there's a lot of things to fix here.
Right. So Caleb starts 10 for 10, and you mentioned that throw that he had in the first drive to Rome Odunze. My God, when you see Caleb Williams make a throw like that, you just feel like everything is possible. Let's actually listen to that first quarter toss.
Komet on his left tip. Swift is split to the numbers left, along with Odunze. Back to throw in a tight pocket, dodging, now rolling to the right, trying to race the Vikings. Throws to the sideline. Inside the 15-yard line. Is the catch made? Yes. It is by Rome Odunze. Bears get it done. Caleb, as he's always known to do, running out of real estate. That's primetime real estate for him.
Oh, that is an incredible throw and catch, and makes you believe in everything that he can do. But when you look back on that drive and really his best moments of the game, it was him using his athleticism, which is great. I think you need to see more of that. And I was really impressed by how many times early in this game the Vikings won cleanly with 4. I don't think the Bears offensive line played well overall in this game. Certainly not in the second half, but not really in the first half either. And how Caleb Williams made those guys miss before either just scrambling or making a throw was really positive, and I think was at a more efficient, decisive level than he did it a year ago. It was really as the game wore on, and I thought Flores showed a lot more looks to him in the second half, and you could almost see like his brain starting to slow. And that's happened to a lot of quarterbacks, who have played against Brian Flores' defense the last couple of years.
Yeah, one of the first things I noted early in this game was Caleb is not, because he has a tendency as he's in the pocket to stop his feet and just kind of survey. Sometimes it looks like he's freezing and then he'll rip a pass, and who knows if it's going to be completed or not. He wasn't doing that early in this game. He was constantly moving. Like that pocket right there on that play, it's a tight pocket, but it's stout. It's stout enough for him to be able to break it, extend the play, and find the receiver downfield. And he was doing a lot of that on that drive when he runs to the left later in that drive. And it all looked positive. I'm like, oh, these are all signs of growth. But the Bears ran out of gas. Like as a team, they ran out of gas, because in the third quarter, Caleb's still trying to make magic, but it just ends up being like basically watching a car crash, because he's trying to make these plays and just chaos is unfolding around him. There's the one play late in the game where he tries to like flip the ball toward the sideline out of desperation, gets a penalty for that. That was an example of your protection breaking down late in the game because they're running out of gas. The Bears won the feel out portion of a week 1 game. They lost the adjustment portion of this game.
Yeah, this week 1 is so strange, and I really caution against taking huge, takeaways. And for most of this game, mine was going to be like, I'm not really sure about the Bears offense. My bigger takeaway is just, man, the Vikings offense has a long way to go. And I think attrition and good coaching and also culture. Like you think about what Minnesota has done over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot of winning. Especially last year, but in general, it's a lot of winning. And the Bears have done a lot of losing. And there's a lot of cohesion and answers from that coaching staff and players that they are used to getting to, finally getting the weaknesses. Because there were weaknesses. I can see some of the Bears fans in the comments, and we love you that you're going through this right now and actually watching a recap. I don't know if I could do that. Pointing out the injuries. Yeah, Jalen Johnson was not in this game in the end. Kyler Gordon was inactive for this game. So 2 of their very best players in the secondary. Nahshon Wright, who had the pick 6, left this game, who was their 4th or 5th cornerback. I don't think he returned, at least as far as
did, but it was pretty brief because it was that last touchdown drive.
So, that's a guy who is a journeyman at this point, bouncing around. And so he leaves the game at one point. They're also without their linebacker, TJ Edwards. Now, there's going to be injuries, but I'm just trying to provide some context to the situation. I do give McCarthy credit, though, because I was starting to take notes for the show and everything. I'm thinking, well, this is a good test for J.J. McCarthy's leadership, because we hear how beyond his years he is as a leader, right? And you can kind of see it, and I think they really like J.J. McCarthy, but he's got to go prove it. And coming off a game like this where everything is so slow and you look completely lost for 3 quarters, you can't get lined up, as you said, like your eyes are slow. I thought he was going through his progression slow. Yep. Literally some of his out routes, like the ball just looked a little slow, and that's a little bit of a concern too. To be able to rally, like, oh, you actually showed me your leadership in the middle of that game. Like, some of the throws were pretty good. I know there were open receivers, but that one to Aaron Jones was a fantastic moment. Let's listen. If we can get Paul Allen into the show another time, let's do it.
Through the air. 1st and 10 from the 27 of the Bears. McCarthy out of the shotgun. Blitz is on, is picked up. McCarthy loops it to Jones. Touchdown! He's showtime! And the Minnesota Vikings have taken a 1-point lead.
Oh, that's a great call there. And a great moment for Jones, who was really quiet in this game. But their running game, him really as a receiver, a couple runs late, but mostly him in that specific play. And then Jordan Mason as a runner was a big difference between them and the Bears, who really were not able to run the ball at all tonight. 66%, by the way, of the YouTube viewers voted that J.J. McCarthy is him, which, I mean, this just shows you that we've got a very young producer coming up with these questions. Shout out to Chris, 22 years old. J.J. McCarthy, Nick, is the first player since Cam Newton with 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in his NFL debut. And all of those touchdowns, of course, came in the 3rd quarter. So pretty cool. Like, I was thinking about, like, oh, he's not really a rookie. He got to learn at the NFL level, but he is essentially a rookie, his first game. And you saw him kind of go through the whole process tonight.
Yeah, that brain can be filled with knowledge from a year spent on the sideline, and that's all fine and dandy. But until you're thrown into the fire, you don't really know how you're going to react. And we saw both sides of that coin tonight with him being slow early. But I love the point that you made about culture and about J.J. McCarthy's leadership, because once he just got to playing football, he has this endless sense of confidence that came from being a successful high school quarterback, from going to Michigan and winning a ton of football games and being the leader of that program for multiple years. They win a national championship in his final game. He knows nothing but success and how to battle through adversity. Remember, this is a quarterback who had to play a few games without his head coach on the way to a national championship. Everybody was criticizing them. He leads them through that fire. And this pains me because look at the shirt I'm wearing, an Ohio State national championship shirt. This pains me to say this, but I'm being completely honest right now. He was forged in that fire. This is a different fire. And by the 4th quarter, he had settled in enough. He'd adjusted to the temperature to be able to deliver. And I think that that's a big reason why Kevin O'Connell felt so confident in making him his franchise quarterback and moving on from Sam Darnold, because he saw that in him. But that the Aaron Jones involvement, I like the way you broke down those running backs too, because I thought that was a really interesting part of their offense, especially in the second half. Aaron Jones is essentially an exclusive 3rd down back. He's a pass catching back. Jordan Mason is the ball carrier between the tackles for most of this game. And it worked out well because it balanced their offense when they really needed it in those later moments in the 4th quarter, which allowed them to spark this whole comeback. But the culture thing is what's most important to me, because like you said, they've done a lot of winning. How many teams in the NFL would be in that situation? Offense is going nowhere. Quarterback looks overwhelmed. Your star receiver's got 1 catch. Nothing's going right. You're on the road, hostile environment, prime time, week 1, and they would have folded. Not the Minnesota Vikings, because they've been there, they've done that. And even with a new quarterback, they had the perfect quarterback, at least with the mental makeup and the physical abilities to deliver in that spot.
Yeah, because he's young. Justin Jefferson's not young. Javon Hargrave, who I thought had a great game in his first game for the Vikings, is not young. 2 sacks for him. Josh Metellus was all over the place. Andrew Van Ginkel, almost picked off that Caleb pass for a screen. One of the most exciting plays in all of football is a screen pass to Andrew Van Ginkel's side of the field. And it was one of the reasons I thought Caleb was getting spooked. We have a comment here that Caleb was missing deep shots from the 1st quarter onwards. And I do think his accuracy is something to talk about here because he was 10 for 10 on the game. A lot of them were check downs. I thought that was good process. Like, he was making the right decisions. I thought he was decisive when he was in that early script. But if you remember, Shook, his first miss of the game was to a wide open, I want to say it was DJ Moore. It was him or Adunze on a 4th down, either in the red zone or close to the red zone while they're going in for a potential score. And that was his first miss. They had gone for a 4th down earlier on that drive. And I didn't blame Ben Johnson for feeling it. I think that was the best home crowd we saw in any game all weekend long. Like, it was an incredible atmosphere there. Like, it was just rocking and you were feeling the flow, and the receiver was open and Caleb just missed him. And there was about 3 or 4 throws tonight where the receiver was open and he missed them. And I think it was more timing than anything, like him deciding to make the throw late and then trying to hurry it or whatever it was. But it was some of the issues that you saw a year ago out of Caleb Williams. I don't want to bury him. I don't think this was an awful performance by him, but ultimately it was a disappointing one, the way that it started and the way that it finished.
Yeah, I agree. His accuracy did wane in the latter portions of this game for sure. And even on that last desperate drive, he had DJ Moore open down the sideline and missed him there too. And that was a timing thing too, because his eyes were in the flats earlier. But I think, things that the Bears need to correct going forward. I was very concerned by their inability to really push the ball even beyond 10 yards. Like, that first drive works out so well. He makes a lot of good decisions with checkdowns and everything else, but a lot of his attempts were swing passes. By the second half, Brian Flores' defense had adjusted. They were like, we're taking that away. Van Ginkel obviously being the shining example of that, almost picking one off. And we know how good he is at doing that from his previous years in the NFL. And it felt like they had no real other options. And even when you had guys open, Caleb would miss them. And those are things that you can work on. Those are the kinks that you're going to have to work through under a new coach and a new scheme and everything else. But I also think that it points to a big part of Caleb's growth this season is going to be less reliance on your arm talent, more reliance on the way that the scheme is designed to work, which comes down to timing, because he has a howitzer for an arm. And I hate that people use that term so much, but it's true with him. He's got a freaking cannon. Less reliance on using that arm strength, more on delivering on time in the scheme will help this offense get to the next stage.
Yeah. While we're at it, this go long piece, and I recommend everyone go read it themselves. Tyler Dunn, who's a good journalist, and had that that article about Sean McDermott using 9/11 as a rallying cry a couple of years ago, and which spurred on a Bills winning streak. Right, he dropped it right in the middle of the lowest moment of their season, and then they went on a winning streak. And while this game started, I thought is it another effect here of the second he drops some incredibly negative article about someone, they take off after that first drive. But man, it really got after Caleb Williams, using scouts, coaches, people that were in the building about how he reacted to coaching. And I think it was almost a direct response to the reporting that happened in Seth Wickersham's book, which really put all the blame on the coaching. And I don't have a take other than you should read it, and that it was interesting, and that situation to me is still lingering. And I thought it'd be really interesting to hear Ben Johnson asked about that specific piece, because it took on Caleb Williams's work ethic and his personality and his leadership ability in a really personal way from direct sources. Let's not focus on that too much. A couple other little things tonight. So, of all the week 1 games, this one was about the week 1-iest. It's I don't know. I want to see what these teams are like in week 4. You know what I mean? They're just figuring stuff out. It's really great for Minnesota to get the win. I think we know this defense is going to be really good. I think we know Dennis Allen can coach up some defense, and I was really impressed with what the Bears did for 2 or 3 quarters, and so there's some good things to feel about. It's let's revisit in week 4. I think we're just getting out the kinks there. But some of the big questions that I had about the Vikings going into this game: one, do they have enough receiver depth behind Justin Jefferson? I'm still a little worried about that. How is this new offensive line look? Christian Darrisaw did not play in this game, so he is still not healthy. And then would the interior line that they brought over from Indianapolis look okay? Mixed results, I would say. Most, not amazing most of the game. And then the Bears, how would their new additions look, especially on the offensive line? Not amazing. To me, it was a feeling out game where the culture kind of won over everything else.
Yeah, I thought there was some mental errors made by the Bears offensive line. Now, there was a holding call that was terrible, but there were false starts. There were issues in the operation that are typical of a team under a new coach, but also like they're lingering issues from previous Bears regimes that like you got to move past that. And I think you will over time.
They have
It just
12
looked like-
penalties, Shook, for 127 yards. I mean, that's when I said this was the week 1-iest game. I mean, the Vikings had 8 penalties for 50 yards, which is not great either. But 12 for 127 is crazy. That's got to make Ben Johnson crazy.
Yeah, of course. And these turnarounds don't happen overnight. I mean, anytime that I've been asked about what do you think about the Bears this season, I think cautious optimism. It didn't happen overnight with the Lions when Ben Johnson was on that staff as the OC. It took them a while, and they finally turned the corner. So I definitely recommend patience. You see some things to like, yes, but it's going to be a work that, a work in progress. Is going to take multiple weeks or months and everything else. And you're going to look back on this game. Dang, we lost to the Vikings in week 1. We shouldn't have lost that game. You're going to move past this at some point, and hopefully it's going to be produce better results.
Yeah, so I should have mentioned at the top of the show, I'm just so excited to be on with you, Nick, and talk about this game that, Monday nights are not just about the game. We are going to hit some news from around the league in just a little bit. We had a trade, including the Eagles. We had some big-time news in terms of injuries, in terms of the 49ers. I think, before we move on from this game, is there anything else that you want to get out there? Because, like, Jordan took the Vikings as a survivor pick, and I thought that was extremely bold, and it just shows that she's a ball knower. And she was honking on text tonight too about how good, like, she was talking up Jordan Mason, and I like how you pointed that out too. I'm curious if you have any other major takeaways before we move on.
I like the team that Ryan Poles has constructed. Like Tano Passanio makes a big play, and I'm like, he's in Chicago? Oh,
Right.
Just elevated from the practice squad. Like, that's a deep dive on a former relatively high pick that played in Kansas City that suddenly you're like, you know what, let's give him a shot. Let's give him some run. He makes a play. And I do trust the process with this team. I like their receiving core more than I did last year. I worry about the Vikings receiving core for the next 3 weeks, but overall, this is going to be one of those games. Like I said, it's week 1. We're going to look back, and it's probably not going to indicate all that much to us. Other than that, the discourse on JJ McCarthy this week, it's going to be real annoying because they're going to get a lot of, oh, he's a gamer.
Wait, did you wear the Ohio State thing because it was going poorly? And you thought you were going to spike the football on JJ?
I put this on 5 minutes before we did the show.
Okay, well, that was a bad choice. I mean, what were you wearing before? Like a tank
cutoff
top?
T-shirt. I'm at
that's
home.
Fine. Give the viewers what they want.
I gotta have sleeves for professionalism.
I mean,
you want to see this all show? I don't know.
You're an athlete. Show it off. Yeah, there were good performances by the Bears defensive line, especially Dio Adengbo, who was a pickup in the offseason, had a nice night with the sack. Gravon Dexter, who's been a slowly improving player on the interior, was better. But yeah, it's gonna take a minute here, I think, for Ben Johnson to get this offense in sync. A lot of those penalties were on the offense, and it'll be a test of him as well, of like how much patience can he have as a coach, because you can tell he like grips that play sheet pretty tight. I also think JJ McCarthy has to like almost figure out maybe how to do less. I wonder if Kevin O'Connell got in his ear about that, because that pick 6 came after, he was changing the play
way too much.
Right? Okay, yeah, I'm glad we got to that point.
The first 4 plays, he's like checking, and I'm watching the play. They break the huddle with 9 seconds. He's out there trying to check to a different play. I'm like, snap the ball.
Right. And like, they were having trouble like getting the snap off and everything, but it also was like, man, this is your first start, and I get what you're trying to do and everything, but it's almost like he was trying to show too much that he's ready and all the things that he learned, because it felt like almost every play he was changing, and that would be fine if like I saw him changing into good plays, but he kept changing into bad plays like that pick 6. But man, all that matters is how it ends. And I hate like, oh, he's a gamer analysis. But a little like Michael Penix, I thought, at the end of that Falcons game. I know they didn't win it. Man, I just thought J.J. McCarthy made a ton of winning plays when it really mattered, and that matters. Like, he ended up with 140 yards. The whole team only ended up with 250. Like, I'm not going to pretend it was some great
5 yards after 3 quarters.
right. Like, I'm not going to pretend it was some great, but it matters. Like, it mattered to me watching that Penix game that, man, he played his very best on his last, few drives of the game. We have a question asking, do you think JJ's performance in the fourth is more telling of his potential or O'Connell's ability to develop quarterbacks? Look, Kevin O'Connell's ability to develop quarterbacks at this point is unquestioned. I think he is one of the best to do it. I don't know what JJ McCarthy is going to be long term based on this performance, but I guess my answer then is more O'Connell.
He's got moxie. Like, I'm going to sound like he's a gamer, but he does have moxie. Like, at the end of the day,
I think it could be both. But O'Connell, I've seen do it with, Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins in some similar spots. So I'll give the nod to O'Connell for now. But a great first game for the Vikings to get off and running. Unfortunately, they did lose Blake Cashman there with a hamstring injury at one point. Okay, let's take a moment here. Let's reset. If you're listening to the audio, we're going to take a break right now. And if you're with us on YouTube, we're just getting started. We're having fun. Let's get into the news. It is time for delivering results presented by Uber Eats. Yes, I want to mention that Tank Bigsby was traded tonight to the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Shook. I wouldn't have been surprised if this trade happened a week before the season started, but I was surprised that it came out on Monday night, right before this game began. The Eagles send a 5th and a 6th round pick to Jacksonville for Tank Bigsby. The Jaguars now have 13 picks in next year's draft, which is absolutely outrageous. Clearly a strategy there. It reminds me a lot of what James Gladstone, their general manager, did when he was in Los Angeles one year, just loading up on late picks because they don't even have their first round pick because of the Travis Hunter trade. But they have 13 picks now, and Tank Bigsby goes to the Eagles. What did you think about this?
This has been a storyline that we've tracked since before camp started, but it was centered not on Tank Bigsby. It was centered on Travis Etienne. It was such a buzzworthy topic at the time that Liam Cohen had to come out and express plenty of confidence and appreciation for what Travis Etienne brought to the Jaguars. So I'm thinking, okay, whoever doesn't win this battle in preseason is going to get traded, but I'm leaning Etienne. So I'm a bit surprised to see that Bigsby gets traded because he led them in rushing last year. He outperformed Travis Etienne. But what we didn't consider is that they've played a game already. And in that game, Travis Etienne ran the ball 16 times for 143 yards. And suddenly, guess what, Tank? Pack your bags. You're going somewhere else. The other end of the trade that I have a lot of questions about is the fact that he went to the Eagles. The same team with Saquon Barkley in the backfield, the same team that went and got A.J. Dillon as a power back, the same team that has Will Shipley in the backfield, which is not a super inspiring player, but I like him as a player. So the question I had was, is Shipley hurt? Is Saquon dinged? Or do they miss what they lost in Kenny Gainwell and they feel like they needed to add another player in their backfield and Tank was the perfect guy for it? So we'll find out. But it's the Eagles accruing talent because, again, they're in their title window.
I think it's so funny that they've become a team now that is majoring in running backs.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what we thought they were going to be. And the comment there that it's rootin' tootin' time. We'll get to the Jaguars side of it, but everyone who bought stock like me in Bashal Tootin', not just in fantasy, but just in reality in the preseason, is celebrating because I think this trade is absolutely about him from the Jaguars side. But the Eagles, to me, I think are more interesting because they're trying to win a Super Bowl. And you said it. I thought A.J. Dillon looked good in that. Like 1 or 2 carries that they gave him in that game. Will Shipley, they like a lot. So maybe we will hear about an injury. I don't think of Tank Bigsby certainly as a Kenny Gainwell type. They are missing that in theory. I think that's kind of what Will Shipley would be. But maybe they just want to have depth. Maybe they're not happy with A.J. Dillon. But they gave up some real capital. Like a 5th and a 6th round pick is a real trade. And they seriously wanted to improve that room. So they were thought about, Nick, as like team analytics. Running backs don't matter. Don't pay the running backs. And also, what's the other position that doesn't matter? Inside linebacker. Just like, we don't need to play linebackers unless they're
team.
And who has literally the best inside linebacker duo now in the NFL?
Yeah, but they bought low.
What?
They bought low on Bond last year, and then made out like gangbusters, and then they spent a top pick on Jahad Campbell. So it's like
right, but now that's a first round pick, and they just gave a contract to Bond, and I think it's kind of like the lessons if we want to think of them as analytically minded, Moneyball, all that, like it's just looking for edges, and at a certain point, after everyone copies what you're doing, like the edge becomes doing the opposite of what you used to do.
You zag.
Right. It's basically like doing stocks. Do you like Bashal Tutin? Do you have a hot take on him? I've already talked about him.
Tutin put down a great 40 time at the combine. He like kind of set the running backs day on fire in Indianapolis. And he was the talk of the town that night. He also seemed to have an issue with ball security in camp. Kind of faded into the background as they went through the preseason. I think a lot of that was because of the trade rumors with Etienne and who was going to go between him and Bigsby, but it felt like he was running back 3 in that depth chart. Now he's running back 2. I like him as a big play potential guy because of his speed, but we don't have a lot of proof because he's a rookie and everything else, and because Etienne's the lead back. So as a spell guy with big play potential, yeah, I do like him. I wouldn't buy as much stock as you did, but it's aspirational stock anyway, and it's worth nothing. So why not buy it all?
It's not. He's in the mix. He's now going to be a major factor because Travis Etienne is a really good running back, and I thought he had his best game of his career. It really wasn't just that long run. Just overall, he looked patient. He looked like the system fit him. I think he can run with power. He's obviously got the speed. He's not a powerful guy, but I think he's shown he could run inside the tackles enough. But he's not a guy you're going to want to give 25, 30 touches to in a game. And when Tutin came in for Etienne after he ripped off that 71-yarder because he was tired, like Tutin's first run, his jump cuts are so violent, and he just jumped from one hole laterally, but also while moving forward to get like an 8-yard run. You just know when you see it. I think he's special. Like you know who he reminds me of is Joe Mixon as a runner. And Joe Mixon isn't running a 4.3, but I just mean in the violence of the way Joe Mixon cut coming out. I thought like, oh man, that's spicy, and I get a little vibe from that from Tutin. So fun. We get a nice little Monday night trade, and yes, that was delivering results. I think Tutin is going to be delivering results, and it's presented by Uber Eats, where you can get the best deals on game day food all season long. The official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Okay, let's go to the injuries that we found out on Monday evening. Our insiders confirming that George Kittle is going to be out multiple weeks. Kyle Shanahan ended up talking about it and saying that injured reserve is at least a possibility for George Kittle because it's going to be multiple weeks after leaving on Sunday. And then the bigger surprise is that Brock Purdy is uncertain for week 2. I mean, he stayed in that game, and I thought he played a lot better than the highlights would have indicated in terms of the interceptions, but he is now uncertain for their week 2 game.
Yeah, I actually went back and watched this game again today just to get the full play-by-play review of it. And I was trying to spot when I thought he might have hurt the toe. And I think it happened when Julian Love came in on the blitz and sacked him because his foot got planted awkwardly. But I'm shocked that, first off, Kyle said that the toe injury is more important than the shoulder thing that he's dealing with. I'm shocked that he finished that game and was able to make that throw on the run at the end to Tonjes for the touchdown with that injury. It's maybe one of those things where the adrenaline and everything else, it doesn't start to really hurt until the next day. And then you realize, oh God, I'm in a tough spot. I'm not concerned that they don't have Kittle because there's ways to make up for that. Granted, they don't have a lot of receivers healthy, so it's a loss, but they were able to win that game without Kittle. He left in the second quarter. I'm more concerned if you don't have Brock Purdy, how this suddenly just shrinks your offense as a whole. And a foot issue is something that could linger, and you know how important feet are, especially to guys like quarterbacks. So it's interesting on the Kittle side because Kyle said a few weeks. Ian Rappaport reported 3 to 5. Short-term IR makes sense. The extra week might make sense. Like if your window's 3 weeks and you want to go 4 and designate to return, that sort of thing. I think that would make sense since it happened in week 1. You have a longer runway. But I wrote this when I wrote it up today. it wouldn't be a 49ers season if somebody important didn't get hurt early.
Man.
Like it's just a repetitive thing with them, and it bums me out.
I'm very concerned. I think they have a few pillars in their offense. And yeah, Chris points out in the comments, we love all the comments, guys, that that CMC is now the healthiest guy in San Francisco, just as we all suspected. So they have a few pillars that make them special. It's Christian McCaffrey, it's Trent Williams, it's George Kittle, and Purdy, I think, does elevate ultimately the people around him. A toe injury is very concerning, but Kittle's 32 years old, and I know he's coming off one of his best seasons of his entire career, but he is 32 years old and starting the season with a hamstring injury at that age, and he is a player that has had injury issues that have kept him out, is concerning because they are just not the same without him. Juwan Jennings left that game with an injury. It doesn't sound like that one is going to be overly serious. I do think they have something really good in Ricky Pearsall. I'm not saying they're without weapons, but Trent Williams had one of the worst games of his career. I was shocked rewatching that game. I've never seen Trent Williams struggle that much.
Yeah,
it might just be
better
like
than him.
who?
Colton McKivitz played better than him on Sunday.
Speaking of Colton McKivitz, he signed a contract extension since we last recorded. Good job by you setting me up there, Nick Shook. I thought it was a very reasonable one considering he's like an average tackle, and average tackles get paid 20 million plus on the open market. And so I think we criticize the 49ers for waiting till the last second to get all these contracts done, and then everyone gets upset. Well, this is an example of them maybe changing their ways. So good job by them there. I am concerned, especially if Purdy does not play. And I was referring to how I thought he did better than, and you can tell me if you disagree. There were some groaners, like the interceptions were really good plays by the Seahawks, but he threw a few up for grabs, but he had 5 or 6 awesome throws in that game, didn't you think? And
I agree.
And held up under pressure, I thought, pretty well.
Yeah, on the rewatch. That's a part of why I went and rewatched it, because I'm like, I watched this live, maybe not on an exact play-by-play basis, because I'm, got like 5 games up or whatever. I think there was 4 in that window. And I went back because I felt uncertain about how his performance really went. Because the one thing that the 2 plays that stuck out in my mind were the second interception he threw and then the touchdown pass he threw. And the Ernest Jones interception was a great play, I think, made by Ernest Jones. So I wanted to run it back. And I agree. I think that there were more positive throws than negative throws in that game. He comes through in the clutch as well. And he did it without George Kittle out there too. So I think that the highlights, common example of how the highlight package doesn't always do a guy justice. I look at Dylan Gabriel's week 2 preseason game as another example. Watch every play to truly get an understanding of how a quarterback played.
Wait, that was the good Dylan Gabriel one or the bad one?
That was the Dylan Gabriel game, his first one where he threw a really bad pick 6.
Yes.
And the rest of the game was pretty good.
Yes, I lost track of my Dylan Gabriel games.
As one does.
Good context. I had a whole segment planned for Brock Purdy tomorrow. If you watch our show on Tuesday, me and Jordan Rodriguez are going to do good omens, bad omens for the 2025 NFL season. The 49ers' first drive of the season, to me, was going to be a good omen. They got the ball on the 5-yard line. Brock Purdy was under heat over and over in that drive, and he kept finding receivers that weren't really open. And I have become a Brock Purdy defender lately. I don't think he's amazing, but I think I think he's a plus quarterback who makes a lot of difficult throws that aren't really there. And I think he elevates actually the people around him. And even if he makes some mistakes that prevent him from being a top 8 quarterback, like he's a value add who's better than I think people think. And that is no longer going to be my good omen, Shook. You got to be able to audible sometimes. Wouldn't really make sense for tomorrow's show. So I'm glad we got him in here. You know what? I'm also glad to get in. The rest of the news is actually sponsored. It's time for our kickoff week recap presented by Nationwide. I predicted on Sunday night's show, Nick, you might remember that Brian Daboll is going to make the change at quarterback because they asked him after the game if he's considering a change, and he said, yeah, and then he didn't answer the question. And when coaches are non-committal, I've learned over the years, they're going to make a change. Now, I should have been a little more careful. That's always the case when that happens on Monday. It's mostly the case when it happens right after the game and they're emotional. And in the end, I was wrong. I'll wear it when I'm wrong. Brian Daboll, You prove me wrong.
Do you intend to start Russell Wilson this week?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Was that ever?
I mean, and after a game, it's an emotional game. It's a tough game. Didn't play particularly well, I would say, collectively, but in terms of making any of those decisions, really at any position or schematic changes, I'd like to, do it with a clear head and watch the tape. And again, like I said yesterday, that game just doesn't fall on Russell Wilson.
What do you think, Chuck?
Okay, first off, I have your back because I got a similar vibe from his response. The window in which he delivered it, you're right. After the game, can't take it, completely 100% at face value. You got to take it with a grain of salt. I don't think you were wrong here because I think that eventually he's going to make this decision. And I think Jordan explained it perfectly on the show yesterday, which is that in that goal line scenario, when they failed to get a touchdown, they had like 7 plays down there and they end up settling for 3. He made that decision as if I can't watch this anymore because I ran this game back today and I had the same conclusion where I was like, I cannot believe that you couldn't punch the ball into the end zone from there. And it's not a running game thing. It's the fact that Russell Wilson in this game, I know we already broke it down yesterday, but there were multiple times where pocket's pretty clean. And if his first read's not there, he's looking to take off as if it's 2014, not forgetting that it's 2025. That's a bad sign to me. So I could have seen him making this change, and he's going to make this change because these things are not going to go away against different opponents. This is going to be a consistent issue. Malik Neighbors bailed him out a lot in that game. And I think over the course of the next month, if not sooner, Brian Daboll's patience is going to run out, just not this week.
You mentioning that got me thinking. I thought you were maybe going to go conspiracy theory here. The Giants are an organization where ownership has gotten involved with quarterback decisions in the past, famously making Ben McAdoo bench Geno Smith for Eli Manning. We've seen how their influence, I guess, in the Saquon Barkley situation was more or less ignored. But we've heard whispers that Daniel Jones was essentially given that big contract because ownership believed in him and wanted him so much, when maybe the front office and especially the coaching staff had mixed feelings about him. And that's given them, in a sense, a longer leash. Like, they know in that building that Daniel Jones wasn't really all on the decision makers there. And ultimately, it's all going to be about Jackson Dart, but you just never know who's getting involved, whether it's the general manager or ownership. These are decisions that are bigger than just the head coach, especially I think in New York. And I don't think Russell Wilson played well at all, but they might feel like for whatever reason, it'd be unfair to bench him now, that Dart could use another week or two, whatever it is. And so Russell Wilson will get at least one more chance, and we'll see. Who do they have on the schedule this week? I should know this. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, luckily I have Jesus in front of me. So they're playing the Cowboys in Dallas.
Ooh, that's a spicy second week. I don't think it's a bad matchup to have.
If it's a disastrous game, I think that public perception plays a factor in them sticking with Russell Wilson, especially if ownership wants him to stick with Russell Wilson. Brian Daboll's coaching for his job. He does not have total patience to let it play out like Mike Tomlin did last year with Russell Wilson. I'm sure he wants to make that change. And if ownership is involved, it's a perception thing. We can't look like a chaotic organization after 1 week. We have to stick with them for another week. But if they go to Dallas and get smoked and Russell Wilson's terrible, that change is going to happen.
Fair. I should have mentioned, by the way, with San Francisco, if Purdy does not play this week, they are in New Orleans. So if you were ever on the fence to play or, sit him for 1 week, they're in New Orleans, and then they're home for the Cardinals and the Jaguars, who I think are competitive, fun, maybe even playoff teams if everything breaks right. But it is one of the softer portions of a pretty soft 49ers schedule. So I guess if this was going to happen, it happened at a pretty good point. Just some other real quick items of news as we wind down here. Nick Amenwari is a candidate for injured reserve for the Seahawks. Charvarius Ward, who had a good first game for the Colts, is in concussion protocol. The Panthers defensive tackle they picked up, Tershawn Wharton, is out 2 to 4 weeks. Any of those stand out to you as particularly important, Shook. Emin happened about 4 plays into that Seahawks game.
Yeah, that was a big bummer for them, and I think he would have made a difference, especially in the way that this game unfolded with Purdy leading them down the field and throwing that touchdown pass, especially with the game that Reek Woolen had. The help over the top from a safety with the athleticism that Emin brings to the field would have been a pretty big boost for them. So that one probably sticks out to me the most. Charvarius Ward, veteran cornerback, concussion protocol. You hope that's a pretty quick turn for him. Panthers, I mean, they need their bodies. They need everybody available right now to bounce back after the game that they just had. So,
yes.
But yeah, I think that Emin is probably the one that sticks out the most. I'm also looking through the players right now because watching that game back, it was Demarcus Lawrence. Oh my God. He had a few plays there where I'm like, who is zero?
Love that dude. Love Demarcus Lawrence in a 0.
All over the field.
Like he's one of those players. If I still wrote, maybe we'll make it into a podcast. It'd be a good off-season podcast. It's not the Hall of Very Good, but I just think it's like great, like all-time great players that have like no chance for the Hall of Fame. Like Demarcus Lawrence is one of my all-time favorite players. That it's not at that level, but he's just a dude. A couple other little items I'll just run through. Julian Blackmon, who is a starting safety for the Saints, could be out for the season. Denzel Perryman for the Chargers, their linebacker, out 2 to 4 weeks. Texans tight end Cade Stover out a few weeks. And Kendrick Bourne signed with the San Francisco 49ers. That was Kickoff Week Recap presented by Nationwide. Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies for your insurance and financial needs. Nationwide is on your side. Just a couple other quick things here. TMZ reported that Tyreek Hill, his estranged wife, Kita Vaccaro, has accused him of abuse on filings related to their divorce. And she accused in this report, which was from TMZ, but it had the documents, reported that he had an argument that escalated to physical violence last week. There were 8 different times that happened, according to the allegations, including punching her in the stomach while she was pregnant. Also alleged to punch in the face and choked. He does not face criminal charges, but Tyreek Hill has a history going back to college and in the NFL for abuse incidents, and the NFL has a wide berth of what they want to look at that could go under the personal conduct policy. So that is something just to keep an eye on. I didn't want to end the show on that news, but I did think it was good for people to know. So I do want to ask you something, putting you on the spot, Shook. We got you on all these primetime games. This is it. We're going to be back on Thursday night. I mean, I was trying to think, is there any other weird night games that we'll see if there's any?
We got a doubleheader next week.
What? Oh, we got a doubleheader next week. That's pretty exciting.
Welcome back.
They're actually good games. I'm going to put you on the spot because you're not in like the Tuesday, Wednesday shows where we kind of take a step back and do some analysis like that. Give me one team or player that after 1 week changed your mind, that you feel a little differently about after 1 week.
Okay, it's not a primetime game despite me being on all the primetime shows.
No, it should be anything.
Yeah. It's not a player and it's not a team. It's a position group. It is the Colts offensive line. We spent so much time this offseason lamenting how they mismanaged up to the pending free agents that ended up going elsewhere, and how it was going to set them back offensively. And you're going to put Daniel Jones behind an offensive line that's not going to be as strong as it was last year, and it already wasn't very strong. They held up pretty damn well in week 1 against the Dolphins. That Dolphins front that we know they've invested heavily in, that was ready to pin their ears back and get after Daniel Jones, wasn't really able to do it. We know the day that he had, but running that game back today, I was just very impressed by how stout they were up front. And so they changed my mind in just 1 week. We'll see if it holds up over the course of the season, but in 1 week, I was very impressed by them.
Of course, we're going to end the show. It's like, oh, yeah, it's a big-time ratings grab. We're just going to go for the easy, like, low-hanging fruit. Cowboys suck. Shook goes Colts offensive line. If my over-under win totals podcast with Nick Wright that we put up a couple weeks ago, where I'm trying to keep my undefeated record of the last 3 years going. Well, first of all, we did 8 picks this year, so I'm not staying undefeated. But some of them after 1 week, I already have regrets about. The Colts might be on top of that list, under 7.5. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to play like this all year,
No.
but man, that they have some winnable games on the schedule. There are actually some really talented players on that roster, and one thing Shane Steichen's going to do, he's going to like win 8 or 9 games. You know, that's all they got to do to win this.
That is true. I will say, Daniel Jones had a great game. I'm not going to take that away from him. He also had some turnover-worthy throws that weren't picked. So
he also took 2 massive hits during the game. So we could be right back to Anthony Richardson land if it goes wrong. Shook, appreciate you. This will be the only time I think we go Thursday, Friday, Monday. So we appreciate everyone who joined us on the YouTube live stream. We appreciate everyone who has made this first full week of the NFL daily schedule a treat and a success. And we love how the numbers are growing and all the feedback that you guys have given to us. We're looking forward to a good week. I will be back in the studio on Tuesday with Jordan Rodriguez. I mentioned good omens, bad omens. We'll get into the news of the day. Man, these comebacks, if it stays this good all year, like this might be the highest rated YouTube live show there is. We'll see you Tuesday.